Now, the rest of the story.
Alright, welcome back. You guys are currently tuning in to the beginning of the end. The end of haymaking for 2019. Now, the road to get to the end of 2019 haymaking has gotten a little bit longer. We have, including what I cut today, we have at least 2, maybe 3 more days of cutting to get everything on the ground, and thus that translates into, we do have some washouts in this field. I'm in the new seeding field right now. What do you see, Calvin? Watching the rabbits. We do have a bunch of hay to get on the ground. Everything that I cut over at Rockville, well, this stuff too, isn't any exception. We went through and we had Andrew spray some fertilizer and radiate, a little bit of a mix onto our second cutting, or our third cutting, our third crop growth coming in, and it really seemed to help. The stuff that I cut at Rockville, we cut that's the third time I cut it this morning, and the stuff that I cut this morning was heavier than first and second crop combined. So the fertilizer, I think, really paid for itself, especially even on this stuff. It's the beginning of the month, the end of the month. We're transitioning into September here, which is absolutely terrible. I refuse to run the radio anymore because I absolutely hate hearing back to school ads and end of summer sales, and well, it's been the end of the summer since what, July? And so I get so sick of advertisers anymore. But the trees are starting to turn, and people already speculating when we're going to start getting some cold weather. Well, if you lived around here, granted this is Southwest Wisconsin for any new viewers that are just tuning in, for the last week, which the last week of August, we were getting down into the high 40s and the low 50s at night. Now, when I was getting up in the mornings, it was typically 50 to 52. And I gotta tell you, for it being the end of August, when you're used to having, you're still seeing 80-degree weather days, and we're not. I checked the weather forecast for the next 10 days. I mean, that's why I'm cutting this stuff right now. We have one over 80 degree weather day for the next 10 days. Everything else is low to mid 70s. They're not exactly calling for a boatload of sunshine, and sunshine is really what this stuff needs. I'm windrowing it, yes. I'm not laying it out flat. Ever since we got that tedder, I hate laying hay out flat. I honestly don't feel that it dries out as nice as let me rephrase that. I don't feel that laying it out flat with the disc bind disperses it as nice as going through and hitting it with the tedder, because the tedder kind of flings it out, kind of fluffs it a little bit and spreads it out over the ground. And the whole point of putting this in a windrow is that it does allow the ground, which I gotta say, for the amount of rain that we've been having, I mean, we have up until, oh, that didn't sound good. Hit some dirt. All the way through August, we've been getting rain every few days. And really, when I went out, and I did not plan on starting to cut hay today. As a matter of fact, I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning, and for some reason, just because of the weather, I was starting to worry that we wouldn't be able to get this stuff made in a decent amount of time, because we'd like to at least have it cut and on the ground before the 15th of September, especially because it's new seeding. We want it to have plenty of time to at least grow back up and make sure that plant has at least a little bit of a store of nutrients before it gets frozen off. Because if you go through and you cut it now and say tonight, tomorrow night, anytime in the next week even, you go through and you get a really hard frost, you run the risk of, yes, I know, it's a bad ditch. We got them all over the farm, and honestly, not because we want to. I don't know who wants ditches across their farm, but just the weather year that Mother Nature has served to us. We're trying to get all this made dry. Going through and hitting it with the tedder is the plan for tomorrow. Sounds like, I asked Ryan if he did want to do it or if he had time. Everybody's busy, and it's just trying to get third crop up and rolled up and put away, so at least we know we have plenty of feed going into this winter. Because, you know, people like to sit and talk about how terrible winter is going to be. I've had 2 different people tell me today that they're expecting for an early fall, an early winter, and a colder than average, or very much colder than average winter. If that's the case, we're going to be really glad we're getting all this stuff put up. We got, I didn't count it, but I'd say we got about 150 acres of third cutting, to put up. So we got a few bales to get made here. But the reason I'm worried about getting into September like we are, especially as far as getting it made decent, is because it's been so abnormally cold lately. I'm worried about getting enough sunlight, enough warm days, and enough dry days, and a long enough time frame to get this stuff cut, tedded, dried, raked, and baled. If it gets rained on when it's baled up, it is not the end of the world. But even getting it under a roof somewhere without getting rained on is even better. So yeah, we are just feeding beef cows, but and granted, in the middle of February with snow up to their tails, beef cows are pretty willing to eat whatever you put out in front of them to eat, but you at least want to make sure they have some quality there, so at least they can keep their body condition. I'm actually going fairly slow. The stuff over at Rockville, because it was so heavy, I was only running between 6 and 8 miles an hour. It was actually bogging the tractor down a little bit. Good thing, very good thing. It's just, they're still tearing that silo down today. And I had some other things slow me up, so I didn't get out and get cutting like I wanted to. It was about 12:30. I actually had to move some pallets of those staves around for the guys because they had everything full and they wanted to get empty pallets laid out closer to the silo so they didn't have to carry them 50, 60 feet. Can't blame them. They're 60, 80 pound pieces of concrete. That gets tiring after 2 days. But they were calling for a 30% chance of rain today. We did get it, and it lasted for maybe 3 minutes. I cut right through it. The reason I cut right through it is because the stuff is being cut green. It is wet. It is going to have plenty of time to dry out any little bit of moisture that it did pick up, which it wasn't hardly anything at all. I can see even on the dust of the tractor, the raindrops are very minimal. Yeah, I didn't even have to run my windshield wiper. So the little bit of rain we got today isn't going to hurt this stuff. It is going to be tedded out, whipped apart, spread out real thin, and hopefully the sun will get to work and dry it out. Basically, I actually heard it in school, but when it comes to not just farming but making decisions in day-to-day life, kind of use that term saying this morning when it comes to decide whether or not to start cutting hay is look at all your possible solutions, take everything into consideration as far as all the variables, make a decision, and stick with it. So that's what I did. I looked at the weather, I looked at the 10-day forecast. It's actually the best forecast we've probably had since February, maybe March, as far as the amount of moisture we're getting. 9 out of the 10 days are supposed to be rain-free. It changes on the regular, but it seems how it's the first week of September. And like I said, we have 150 acres of material to get made. I saw an opportunity to get this stuff put up with minimal rain exposure, and I took it. So, made a decision, and that's just what it's going to be, I guess. But don't worry, it's my fault if it gets rained on, because somebody's got to be there to get blamed, right? So, I'm going to talk about my 76 a little bit because I love talking about my tractor. Plenty of horsepower. The paint job is starting to show some wear and tear because it is used as our main horsepower tractor. Would we ever get a 4440 or a 4430 again? Yeah, I've said it many, many times before, but I know I have new subscribers joining the channel on a regular basis, so I have no problem repeating myself. Maybe I'm just getting ready for kids. So Grandpa actually put the first 50 to 75 hours on this machine. My first real job I used it for was pulling Grandpa out of the snow with his wonderful 4230, his baby. The 76 is my baby. But in the middle of the night, actually it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and everyone was getting up going to work right out by the road. I made sure when Grandpa called me, because he did have a cell phone at that point, when I went to go pull him out, I made sure I had every single light on the machine. And I pulled out of the shed really slow, and I took my time. Why? Because I love my Grandpa. And you know what? That's exactly how me and Grandpa got along, is we actually poked fun at each other. My Grandpa could be a bit of an ass. What person in this world doesn't have that capacity? That was just my Grandpa's nature. Still had his kind side, his soft side, his day-to-day side. So, yeah, there are things I miss about Grandpa. There's plenty of things I miss about my grandma. For how quick my grandma went, she didn't. She was actually here for a long time with Alzheimer's, and that was terrible. And Grandpa was pretty much here and gone in the way that he went. I was talking to him the night before, and the next morning it basically just boiled down to a phone call, and 30 minutes later he's gone. So I don't know, I think he liked the 7600. I really do. He knew that when he bought that 7400, he had that 2955 that I used all the time. It was always my go-to tractor. And then when he got the 7400, I just radiated to it, because when you're a young individual and there's a new piece of equipment on the farm, granted it wasn't brand spanking new, I believe that was a 1994 machine, and does that sound right? Yeah, 1994. And granted it wasn't brand new, but it was new enough for Travis, and I radiated to it, and I used it for everything, which in turn is why I got a 7600. Fun fact about me, I was actually looking for a 7400, and Dad found this machine online, and I bought it sight unseen. Really risky. I don't recommend doing that very often. It was a home run for us, but yeah. So that's really how me and Grandpa got along the last few years, is that I had my tractor, my 7600, even the 7400 even before this one, and Grandpa had his 4230, and that 4230 was his everything tractor, just like I have my everything tractor, just kind of like Dad has his everything tractor. I mean, Dad likes the 4020 for a lot of like the raking jobs and stuff like that. Ryan, I couldn't really tell you what Ryan's favorite go-to tractor is. It might actually be Big Red right now. If Ryan goes and actually buys his first tractor, I'm sure it's going to be something. I can give you a little bit of a heads up. I know what he's really drooling over. He's drooled over it for a while. Most of his loyal viewers will tell you that it's probably a 4960. He just showed me one the other day, because you know, it's just farmer mentality. You're always on the lookout, even if you're not willing to break out the checkbook. He did find a really nice 4960. Not very many hours, 3,000 or 4,000 hours on it for about 50 grand. And I only paid, money's money, right? Can't take it with you when you go. The 76, I believe, was 47,000. And it's been paid off for a few years now, but I'm on the lookout. I would like to buy another tractor. Am I looking to buy one this year? Next year? Probably not. My goal is to get some cows on the farm, so some cows, plus the crops, plus some other investments, and some other passive income can actually go towards another tractor purchase. I do actually have a cow fund going. As weird as it sounds, I've had a couple people throw some money at it, and I have enough to buy 2 or 3 heifers. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I like being diverse. I know I am just rambling this video, but honestly guys, you're keeping me sane right now. So, yeah. If there's anything that I wish my grandpa would have told me more, was my grandpa was a successful businessman, as well, at the end of the day he was. I mean, he did not want to end up in a nursing home at the end of his life, and he did not, neither did my grandma, end up in a nursing home at the end of their lives. The fact my grandma did not end up in a nursing home is contributed largely to my mom. I don't think my mom gets enough thanks for that, because my mom took care of my grandma for a considerable amount of time. So I do think thanks isn't thrown around here enough, it seems, but it's kind of one of those unspoken things that you're just supposed to assume it, I guess. But as far as my grandpa, he talked a lot. He talked about the past. He talked about the good old days, as many old people did. I don't know how many people get the privilege of hearing your grandparents tell you that they love you. Now, I imagine some people are going like, well, yeah, that's really no big deal at all. Well, if you had grandparents that worked as hard as some of those old farmers do, and actually hearing it from them is kind of, what's the best way to put it? I've been at a loss for words a lot around here lately. But it's reassuring, I guess. I guess that's the word I'd use. It's reassuring knowing that your grandparents can actually tell you that they love you when you grew up your whole life, devoting your whole life to their lifestyle being farming. I was encouraged my whole childhood to look out beyond farming, and I simply refused to. And here I am. So, yeah. As far as my grandpa goes, I've said it a couple times now, I keep running around in circles. What I wish Grandpa would have told me more about and maybe taught me more about when I was in high school and college was actually how to better manage my money, how to diversify, when you should be spending your money, when you should be holding it back, what you could be putting your money into. That was and still is a learning subject, or a learning point. Granted, I did a lot of learning there as far as not spending my money on just stuff. Granted, farm equipment and stuff like that isn't just stuff, it's stuff that helps you make a living. But let's be honest, I need the 76. We need this machinery, but it doesn't necessarily make you your money back as quick as some other things you could have put your money into. Anybody that's a younger viewer that is watching my channel right now, to pass on to you to what I wish my grandpa would have said more to me is diversify. I mean, he tried telling it a little bit, but he just didn't convey it as well as maybe he really should have. You guys heard me say in the beginning of this video, or earlier part of this video, yes, diversify. Crops, cattle. I do have money that I've put into other aspects of my life, and I'm looking down the road that I'm going to get a return on it. What else can you be doing? Looking around, can you be doing a better job of marketing? I did a better job of marketing. I can do a better job marketing grain than anybody else. I gotta go. Somebody's checking up on me. So. Alright guys, I gotta keep going. I gotta grab a couple gears and get out of here because I gotta utilize all the sunlight tomorrow that I can. So you guys are watching the rest of the story. Thanks for everybody that tuned in this long. I guess this is more of a for me video because, like I said, you guys kind of kept me sane, or keep me sane. I'll talk to you later. Until next time, until then, take care, take it easy, keep in touch.